Hello and welcome to my channel. So today I just kind of wanted to go over and recap my summer books, which were a lot because that was pretty much all I was doing was reading. So we have a really long list of books to get into and my thoughts on them. So let's get started. First on my list is Anatomy, which is the story of a girl named Hazel who lives in the late 1800s Victorian England, or Scotland, and she wants to be a surgeon. But the problem is she is a woman. But she's a very cunning woman, and as a cunning woman, she ends up devising this plan where she gets the head of the anatomy department at her local college to agree to let her take the test if she can prepare for it on her own and not take any of the classes. This is categorized as a YA romance, and it is really cute, fun, kind of creepy vibe, so perfect for autumn if you're looking for something like that. I ended up rating it 3 stars. Next, I read the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. So I would rate the trilogy as a whole as like a 4.75 because it's really good. If you're looking for a small town mystery, here it is. It's amazing. It is a YA mystery, I believe. And we follow Pip, who is doing her senior capstone project on a murder/disappearance. It's a disappearance that is assumed to be a murder that happened 5 years prior. And she ends up kind of teaming up with the suspected murderer's brother to kind of prove his innocence when the whole town thinks he's guilty. The whole mystery of the first book is solved in the first book, and each book kind of has a different mystery with one overarching thing, and I thought that was really cool. I'm not really a mystery reader, so I was really nervous going into this, but the first book I rated 5 stars because it shocked me. The twists and turns were amazing. I never saw anything coming, and everything kind of just fit in place, and everything was good. There was no moment where I was like, oh, that seems a little forced, and it was just all perfectly laid out. From one series to another series I read this summer is The Summer I Turned Pretty, which came out on Amazon Prime as a TV show, which was amazing, and everyone and their mom is talking about it, or was, even if they never read the books, which, you know, if you want to read the books and feel superior to them, they're really good. Well, let's talk about it. So this series follows Belly, who is a teenage girl. It is a YA kind of summary romance, and Belly every summer goes to her mom's best friend's beach house, and her mom, her and her brother stay in her mom's best friend's beach house with her mom's best friend's 2 sons. Since Belly can remember, she's always had a crush on the older son Conrad, but as this summer is the summer she turned pretty, she is more confident and she is going after what she wants, and Conrad is very withdrawn this summer, and she's not about that life, so she goes off and does other things. As you probably know, because this is everywhere, it is a love triangle story, and that's all I'll say about it. It serves the summery vibes, and it really made me nostalgic for, you know, teenage summer. Next is my first Colleen Hoover book of the summer, which was Heartbones, which is the perfect Colleen Hoover book for summer because it follows Bea as she moves in with her dad for the summer, and he lives in a beach house, and she kind of ends up having a little thing with their neighbor Samson. And the whole premise of the book is Bea is from a family that doesn't have a lot of money. She grew up with a single mom, and this is the first time in a very long time she's spending time with her dad. And Samson comes from this family of wealth, and their differences kind of drive the plot forward until they realize that they're actually not that different after all. I thought this was so cute, and I do think it's one of the more tamer Colleen Hoover books. The twist got me, but I can't say it was the best twist I've ever seen. I do think that it is a cute, fun book, and I really did enjoy my time here. It's not one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books, but it definitely fit the summer vibes, and I ended up rating it 4 stars. Next, we have Family of Liars, which is the We Were Liars prequel, and I was really excited for this because I was one of the people who liked We Were Liars. It emotionally changed me as a person. I finished it and I stared at a wall for an hour because I could not believe what I had read. So when Family of Liars came out, I got it immediately and I was really impressed. Pretty much Family of Liars follows the generation before We Were Liars, so the kids in We Were Liars' parents, who are sisters. It chronicles a summer where more Sinclair's secrets were covered up. You know what they say, the Sinclairs are liars, so there are lies and secrets everywhere. The twists were amazing. I think I liked this more than We Were Liars, just because the twists, although they didn't provide the same shock value, I liked them more and I liked the story as a whole, and I felt like I connected to the characters a lot more than I did with We Were Liars. I ended up rating it 4 stars. Next is Rarity, which follows a freelance author who is hired to finish the very successful book series by Rarity Crawford, who is a very famous author, after she has an unfortunate accident. She ends up moving into Rarity's house with her husband and child to kind of go through her office, try and figure out what's going on, and that's all I'll say. It is a romance thriller, it is creepy, and I rated it 5 stars because it was a whirlwind of a story, and when you finish it, you sit there and you question every single thing you read before it. Up next is Where the Crawdads Sing, which I read before the movie came out. It follows the main character Kaya, who is living in the 1960s, I believe, in a small town in South Carolina, where she is considered the marsh girl because she is weird and she lives by herself in the marsh, and nobody in town really sees her often. She never went to school, she never really had friends, and one by one her whole family abandoned her until she was living on her own. Now this kind of goes back and forth in time from like when Kaya's growing up and then in present day when there's a murder investigation and she is the prime suspect. This book really gave off like To Kill a Mockingbird vibes, and I really did like it, but I think that the beginning is really slow and there are a lot of parts that just feel dragged on and the pacing is not the best. I did really enjoy it though. If you can persevere through the beginning that's really slow, I think you will too. And the movie and I rated it 4 stars. Next up, I read a book called Boys Don't Cry by Fiona Scarlett, which takes place in Ireland, and it follows 2 brothers in dual POV but also dual timelines. So the past and present is told from 2 different brothers. And it is such a heartwarming story because at the beginning of the book, very early on, you realize that one of the brothers died, and this is the story of how he died. And then you watch the other brother trying to deal with the aftermath of that while their family is kind of destroyed and distraught. And I thought it was a very touching, heartwarming story that just really hit me in here. I rated it 4 stars. Next, I read Late to the Party, which is the story about a girl who, for the first time, kind of feels loved and liked and supported and like she has friends. So she ends up going to a party to pick up her friends because she's not really a partier, but they are a little drunk and need her help, and she ends up catching one of the popular guys in school kissing another boy, and in order for her not to tell, he kind of strikes a deal with her, even though she wasn't going to tell anyway. They end up forming this like unconventional friendship where he kind of takes her under her wings and she kind of gets in with all of his friends, and she even starts having a little crush on one of his friends, Lydia. And this story is about friendship and first love and just being yourself and expressing yourself, but what that looks like, trying to balance friendships and how you don't hurt people while also trying to grow on your own. I gave this 4 stars because I thought it was such a cute little fun summer read, and I really think that more people should read it. It was a blast. I loved it. The last 3 books I want to highlight are 3 arcs I read. The first being The 9 Origins, who follows Blake, who her whole life she's kind of like seen glimpses of the future and kind of stopped bad things from happening, and she is approached one day by a man who is claiming to be part of the 9, which is the secret society of people who have these 9 different abilities, and they all come together and kind of protect themselves because they are the odd people in the world. This kind of gave off Shadowhunter vibes when I was reading it. Keep in mind, I've only read the very first Shadowhunter book and I didn't like it That being said, I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I thought that the secret society aspect of it was really interesting, and I thought that the dark academia vibes were really there, and I did enjoy it, although I did think that some things were over described and there was a lot of more exposition than there was dialogue and action, and I had a little bit of problems with that. But overall, I did really like this book, and I can't wait for the next installment. The next book I read is Paris Daliancourt is About to Crumble, which is a book by Alexis Hall, who wrote Boyfriend Material. I have not read Boyfriend Material, but I see it a lot on Book Talk, so I was very excited to read this arc. And when I finished the book, I was very disappointed that I was excited to read this arc. I think, don't get me wrong, I think that the idea is really cute. It's about this guy named Paris who is competing in a baking show. At this baking show, he kind of has a rough start to meeting this other contestant, Tariq, and they end up getting over their differences, and they try to date a few times, and you kind of follow them through the baking show, but also on the weekends in their personal lives. That being said, I think that the most interesting thing about this book was the baking show when Paris and Tariq weren't speaking. I think all the other characters at the baking show made me laugh, they made me smile. I loved them, and I think that they were amazing in every way. Paris and Tariq were so awkward, and that's all fine and dandy. It didn't bother me until it got to the point where everything Paris said he overthought, which is part of his character trait, and that's fine. But Tariq would just go at him, and it wasn't really fun. This book I was expecting it to be light and fluffy, cute little rom-com, and dived into a lot of serious topics, but it didn't really teach me anything about the serious topics. It just kind of talked about them, but not in a constructive way. The main force of any romance should be the chemistry and the tension, wanting the two main characters to get together, and that is not in this book. I did not want them together. I wanted them to never talk to each other again. I ended up rating it 2 stars because I gave it a star because the baking was fun. I liked the baking show aspect, and anytime they were at the baking show, I was living for it, but I couldn't stand the two main characters apart, and I couldn't stand them together, so it's a 2 star from me. The last arc I read was Not Your Happily Ever After, or something like that. I cannot remember what the title of that book is, but I thought it was okay. It follows the main character as she's kind of like searching for her perfect Prince Charming. Now, she's also a writer, so she starts realizing that if she puts on her writing cap and goes into the world trying to find stories to write about, she can be more confident and she can experience more of life. She starts trying to like fictionalize her real life experiences, which kind of diminishes any chance she can have of having her happily ever after. And I really liked the plot, but I do think that the beginning of the book is really slow and boring. I also think that the main character is kind of obnoxious and hard to connect with. I wasn't rooting for her to like finally get her happily ever after, because her happily ever after was so obvious in the first couple chapters that her going off and trying to like produce fictional happy endings was just not interesting to me, because I was like, it's so obvious how this book's gonna end. I don't know if that was just a me thing, but that is how I felt. Because this video is already really long, I'm now going to rapid fire very popular books I read this summer and what I rated them. So first we have Addicted to You and Ricochet, which are the first and second book in the Addicted to You series. I rated Addicted to You 4 stars and Ricochet 3 stars. Next, I have the entirety of the Inheritance Games. I rated the Inheritance Games 4 stars, the Hawthorne Legacy 5 stars, and the Final Gambit 5 stars. Seriously, it's a very, very good ending to the series. Next, I read Confess by Colleen Hoover at 4 stars. Sunkissed by Casey West at 1 star. Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin at 4 stars. Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan at 5 stars. To All the Words I've Loved Before by Jenny Han at 3 stars. A reread of Song of Achilles at 5 stars. Every Summer After at 4 stars. A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow at 3 stars. I had a wonderful summer of reading. I hope you did too. Make sure to comment down below if you've read any of these books or what you read this summer. I would love to know. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!